all please join me in welcoming Cindy Coleman?
Thank you. Okay.
You can pick either chair,
Either one, okay. Yeah, I'm having back issues, so it's hard to see.
and I will run the microphone
Okay.
to handle questions.
Great.
Okay, and here's a clicker so you can advance that. Okay, you probably need to point the clicker this way, but that's for the
Okay.
computer.
Should I turn to the other way, maybe? No, I got this. I got this. I got
Got
this.
it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just thought I'd bring up this thing too in case I can see. Okay. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here tonight and talk about what I consider the best part of real estate ever. So I'm going to get into it. Some of it will be a little elementary and stuff, and Goodwin already talked a little bit about about the note business and the different types. So a little bit will be repetitive, but I'm going to go through it really quickly. Okay, so up. Which one?
You need to go back and forth.
Okay. Here's my little disclaimer, as if you don't get enough already. This is for information purposes only. You know, I am not an attorney. I'm not an accountant, so you're going to have to check with your own. This is just something that I do, and believe me, I have my own team and spend a lot of money on both of those, attorneys and CPAs. This is a little bit of a bio about me. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. My grandfather was a real estate investor and actually built quite a legacy. At one point, my grandfather probably owned a third of the Salt Lake Valley. He's very, very well known there, and he would work hard. He was a farmer. He'd work hard, invest his money in real estate, and then he'd work more, buy more properties, whatever. He had a lot of commercial. And then he got to a point where he was not only like buying real estate, but he was buying the business that went with it. So some of it, he had a bakery, a Dolly Madsen bakery. He owned the building and the business. He had Cadillac dealerships, Chevrolet dealerships. You know, there were food association groups that he had bought the warehouse to that whole thing, and the grocery stores throughout the valley would come in and purchase that. So anyways, that's kind of how I started. And I remember when I was a little girl, my grandfather always telling me, this is the way to wealth. And this is how you build family wealth, is by doing what I'm doing. So I was taught at a very young age to work very, very hard and always have my money working for me. So I actually started my career after I left Salt Lake City. I had an opportunity to go work for an insurance company. So it was a trainee program, and so I moved to Tampa, Florida. And I began this underwriting training program in commercial property and casualty insurance. During that time, I learned underwriting skills, which has really helped me in the real estate business and stuff, especially when it comes to due diligence. So I did that for over 30 years. So 30 plus years I was in commercial property and casualty. One day, back in 2017, I decided, you know, I'm kind of sick and tired of making money for the big guy and stuff in these big corporations. I want to step out and make my own money. So that entrepreneurial spirit was just kneading at me, and I finally said, I'm done. I fired my job, which I don't recommend anybody getting started in real estate do. Do it as a side hobby, because it does take patience and a while to get started. So, but I did. And thank goodness for my husband here, who's here and stuff. He kept his job, but I fired mine and got started. And I joined an educational group called Fortune Builders. Many of you have heard, out of San Diego. They were one of the first shows on Fix and Flips on HGTV, so Than Merrill. And after spending like $100,000 with them, I got a great education and I got great tools, backroom support, but I was never taught how to actually do it once I got my first deal. So they're legitimate. I'm not saying that. It was just very, very expensive to start off that way.
How much was that?
I'm into it over $100,000 by the time they upsold me on all the stuff I really didn't need.
How much is all your membership?
Exactly. There you go. So anyways, it's like, and then, so we jumped in, and it took us about a year, but we finally found our first fix and flip in Tennessee. And we bought it off of HUD. We bid on it, got the property. We flew out there to Tennessee. I remember sitting in the driveway, and it's pouring rain, and I'm sobbing. I'm like, this looks like the money pit. This is horrible. I mean, the fascia was coming off the house. I mean, the paint was chipped away, the overgrowth in the yard. And I was just like, we don't even know what we're doing, right? I mean, I've literally, like, run a calculator and a pencil my whole life. And now I have to swing a hammer and use a screwdriver. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't even know how to paint. So anyways, the long and the short is we ended up like finding a general contractor there that could help us, which we didn't really know this guy, and I trusted him right off the bat. Never do that. So and then I found another house that was for sale. It was an older home that it was actually very close on the border to being a historic home. But I bought that house, and there's certain things I couldn't replace in it, like the lead glass, and it had this beautiful hardwood. It was so well taken care of. So we bought that house, and then we found another house that was actually our realtor had a pocket listing, and so we took that, which ended up being a hoarder. And then we found another house that was actually used for foster children, but it was a very big house in a newer area. We were in Jackson, Tennessee, which is in between Nashville and Memphis. And we ended up buying that house. So we had 4 going at once. Never do that when you're starting out. Do one deal at a time. I'm telling you this because this is how I feel I used my $100,000. Even though I had to pay it, I did learn, and I lost more. So the only house that we made any money on was the one that was the historic house. Our contractor took advantage of us. He'd give us our bids, the scope of works, everything at the close of the deal when we'd go to sell the house. When it was listed, he'd come in with the final bid, and it was double of what he bid to us. And he also filed liens on the property to get paid before the house was sold. Dirty dog. Realtors, it's like, they couldn't sell the house unless we were offering concessions to the buyer. Are you kidding me? And so we were paying closing costs, whatever we could do to get out from underneath this house. Not only did we invest our money and we were going back and forth, I never really thought about factoring in the costs of traveling back and forth to be boots on the ground. I rented an apartment from our home builder, or I should say not our home builder, our contractor, who had furnished apartments for $2,000 a month in Jackson, Tennessee. So I'm doing that. I was 2 weeks in Tennessee, a week back in California, would go back and forth, and then airfare. So needless to say, we lost, I'm just going to be straight up, we lost all of our 401k money doing this in Tennessee. One house I made money, but I had private money on some of these deals, and everybody got paid off before I did. So the net result is we lost all of our 401k money. But I made sure every single investor and a person that had a piece in this, including the crooked contractor that I had to deal with, got paid money he did not deserve, but I had to get that title and that property free and clear for the new owners. So I guess my whole thing is, that's why I always say, don't trust anybody, vet everybody out, know who you're dealing with, whether you're lending, you're doing a partner deal, a JV deal, or anything like that. Make sure that you vetted that person out and that they do what they say they're going to do. People who work with me, the first thing that I give to them is, my core values and my mission statement. So how I look at notes is a little bit different. I don't want the property. Believe me, I might break a fingernail. I traded in my hammer and nails. I said, give me back my pencil and my calculator and stuff, and I started learning about notes and doing it from the different side, because what I was realizing is when I was on the fix and flip side or whatever it was, I was always like begging for money. And I knew I didn't want to be a landlord, and there's a reason for that. My mom and my father also purchased a lot of real estate, and they were like for rentals, for passive income. Well, my father passed away at a very young age, and I was in Florida learning to work for an insurance company. And when my father passed away, and I had to be a long-distance landlord in a very difficult time of the market. So it was like at this time, it was like the late 80s. And I'm trying to long distance run these things. We're trying to rent these things. We're giving away free rent, everything just to keep them occupied. Was not worth it. I'm like, I will never be a landlord again in my life. So I swore to that. Even in Fortune Builders, they're saying, oh, you could be a landlord. And I go, look, the only thing I want if I'm a landlord is leasing a storage unit. All I have to do is sweep and clean. That's it. So tenants were a challenge for me, especially being long distance. So I learned, well, on the note side, I'm always asking for money. Well, how about if I just pull myself out from the bottom of all this and catapult myself to the top of the food chain, and now I have the money. I'm the one, people are coming to me for the money. And all I have to do is work with some of these borrowers on these homes and say, as long as you're paying me, it's like, I don't want your house. I just want your money. That's all I want. So that's worked out really, really well. It takes you a while. I will say I work with several people. One of my things when I work with people, other people, is get yourself a little bit of education. There's so much free education out there. Talk to good ones, some of the experts that are in the business. I'm a little bit leery of any kind of educational gurus that are out there saying, give me 25,000, 100,000 Fortune Builders. Give me all your money and stuff, and I'll teach you all about it. That's not true. You learn by doing. So I will work with people that buy notes, and I will work with you and mentor you through to help you watch some of the red flags. But I'm not out here upselling any kind of a program or anything like that. I'm just telling you, get yourself educated. Participate in meetups like this. There's plenty of note meetups that are online. They're all over. And, and partner yourself with people like Goodwin and other people that are in the note space to help you through. So let's see. Where's my little thing? Okay, so anyways, that's a little bit about me. Let's get into the good stuff, the notes. So, ask yourself, what type of an investor are you? Are you a passive investor? And as an example of that, that would be a landlord, where you get monthly rent every month. You get that. Are you an active investor? That's where you may buy a property, distressed property, you fix it up, you turn around and you sell it, and you get a chunk of money all at once. Or do you want to be a note investor, a lien lord? And as Goodwin pointed out, I don't have to worry about toilets, tenants, termites. I don't have to worry about anything. And let me tell you, my days of flipping, when they were pulling out varmints out of my floorboard that were as tall as my contractor, I'm like, that's it. That's it. What is coming out from underneath this house? So it was a lot. And the hoarded house was a lot for me as well. So you have what type of a note investor? Goodwin mentioned, that there's the passive, and those are performing notes. People that are making their payments timely, and then there's the non-performing, and those, for whatever reason, people have stopped making payments on their notes. Now, non-performing notes is what I specialize in, but I do all kinds of notes. Okay, let me get my little thing here. Okay, so what is a note? Okay, basically a note is a promise to pay. It's an IOU. You lend money out and that person promises to pay you back, okay? It could be anything from a credit card, a car loan, a mortgage on your house. There's all kinds of notes that are out there. As a matter of fact, if you look at your dollar bill, that's a note. Okay, if you look at your checking account, that's a note. You sign that check and it's a promise to pay, okay? It can be either secured or non-secured. I only deal in secured notes, and that's why I do notes on mortgages or first deeds of trust, okay, because the property is secured by that. But I do know several people who will buy credit card debt. That's unsecured. I know several people who will buy, they will buy car loans. Obviously, that's collateralized by the auto. If you don't pay, they'll come take it. But there's all kinds of debts that are out there. There's medical debt. People will buy, and the thing about debt when you buy it is the whole thing about making money with notes is how you buy. And so you need to understand how it works. Like I buy non-performing, so it's like buying a distressed property. It's like when I go in, I price it knowing I don't need to worry about after repair values. Okay, I know what my ARV is every single day, and that's that unpaid principal balance. Is the amount of debt owned on that property. So I don't have to guess into like a year, 18 months after I put all this blood, sweat, and tears into the property will be worth X. I know every day what my ARV is going to be. And it's tough right now in this market because we're seeing some of the trends kind of coming down. Equities are dropping, listings, and all the other stuff. And so it's nice knowing I feel comfortable about that. And I do like equity protection, believe me. I like that in case I have to take the property back and get rid of it. But that's not what it's about. So it's about how you buy up front in order for you to make money, and particularly on non-performing. So now, I'll keep losing this little thing. Okay.
You want me to take care of that?
Here you go. I'll just shoot you a little thing. So what's the difference between a note and a deed? Okay, so there's two different types of paper that you can buy. There's the mortgage note. Now here in California, we also call those deeds and trusts. So, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I'm jumping ahead. A mortgage note is basically the promissory note. It's in the borrower's name. Okay, it's not in anybody else's name. It's the IOU. And it lays out the terms of the loan, the length of the loan, the interest rate, everything's in that note, the IOU of what you promise to pay back. The deed of the house is what is your security. So the deed is usually going to be the real estate, okay? So you have the note, and the security instrument is going to be the deed to the house. So, and that is generally in the borrower's name. So now what is the difference between a mortgage deed and a trust deed? A mortgage deed, there's two parties that are involved. There's the borrower and there's the lender. Okay, so those are the only two. If you have a trust deed, there's three people that are involved. The trustee, the third party, is going to hold that deed and the promissory note, and then there's the lender and the borrower. Okay, so those are the three parties that are involved. The foreclosures differ between the two. So, for example, if you have judicial and non-judicial, you'll hear that. Most of the judicial are going to be mortgage deeds, and most of the non-judicial states are going to be trust deeds. Okay? What is the difference between a mortgage and a contract for deed? Okay, so a mortgage and a deed of trust is kind of what I just explained. But for the most part, it's better protected because there are certain issues that you have to go through. It's highly regulated. And there's certain things in a mortgage that you have to go through. It has to be compliant with Dodd-Frank. And if anybody remembers, back in 2007, 8, and along the way, it's like banks were just taking properties and not giving really the borrowers any kind of rights or any protection. They were just saying, you're late and we're taking your house. That's it. That has changed a lot. It's like they're better at underwritten, and you'll have the Truth in Lending Acts, the Dodd-Frank, and all the other stuff. The contract for deed or the land contracts, it's the complete opposite. It's a little bit of the wild, wild west out there. You'll see a lot of them, and there are reasons when you need to do a contract for deed. I, as a note buyer, I generally will not buy a contract for deed. Okay, I mentioned it's like, it's all about cash flow without the tenant's toilets and everything else. I can sell the note. I can sell the total performing note. If it's a performing note, I can sell it up to the total unpaid principal balance. Okay, so if I owe $100,000, I'm going to give them a little bit of a discount. Maybe I sell it for $95,000. And I'm going to sell it, but it's pretty close to that unpaid principal balance. And I will say, I don't buy unless I get a discount, because every note buyer is going to have some kind of boarding costs or cost to like get that loan on board. So